News. Thank you for staying with us for the latest in the world of business. Right now, we want to talk about a sort of controversial issue concerning taxes, and we have in studio Dr. Fred Mugambi. He is a commissioner at KESRA and equally the director at the Kenya School of Revenue Administration. He's going to be telling us more about the issues around taxation in Kenya. Are we highly taxed? And of course, we're going to talk so much more and we're going to get enlightened much more about the mandate of KESRA in Kenya and in Africa and equally worldwide. Welcome, Dr. Fred Mugambi.
Thank you very much, Brian. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. So I'll start our first question with this. A few months ago, the president gave sort of a tax waiver. And then we saw that being, the tax resumptions, they're going to be normal again. The taxation is going to be normalized. So owing to that, why was that move made in such a time when Kenyans are still suffering the adverse effects of COVID-19, job losses and all these things? And then also take us through what it would now take to cushion people against the adverse effects of COVID-19 owing to the taxes that are, the way taxes are resuming.
Thank you very much, Brian. First and foremost, at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, it was necessary for the government to put in place various measures, basically containment measures and various other measures, restrictions of movement and so on and so forth. And what that meant was that business was going to slow down, and generally Kenyans were going to have it a little tough from the economic side. And it became necessary for the government to reduce various taxes. For example, we saw VAT go down from 16% to 4%. And of course, there was a raft of changes, across other taxes. Basically, a number of them were brought down. Corporation tax went down, for example, from 30 to 25%. And that was the same case for individual taxes like PAYE. But over time, those restrictions have been eased. And, people can move around. And what that has done is that it has occasioned kind of an improvement in the business sector. And we are able to tell that business is improving. And you remember that these were not permanent measures. These were temporary measures whose aim generally was, to increase the amount of money in the pockets of Kenyans and also to support the business community. And naturally, as containment measures go down and as the business environment improves, it is only natural that the government reverts to the tax regimes that we've been following. And these are not new taxes. These are basically the old taxes that we've been having.
Fair enough. Now, with that background in mind, would you walk us through the performance of KESRA between that period that the president gave that tax waiver and now when that tax waiver has been sort of lifted?
Yeah, of course, we know that the tax reductions naturally had an effect on collections, and you saw in the memo, in the statement that was produced by the CS Treasury, that we forwent something between 60 and 65%, 60 and 65 billion Kenya shillings in taxes. But net of that, I would say that we are well on course. And obviously, we expect that as the economy comes back to its feet, that tax revenues will also increase. I should also say that there are lessons that we've learned. We've become a lot more efficient as an authority. We've put in place mechanisms that are supposed or that help us, to kind of block some of the leakages that may have happened previously. And therefore, moving forward, we expect to collect within target.
Fair enough. So, walk us through the tax regime and how that is going to affect young people in businesses and the small and medium enterprises, which are, by and large, the backbone of this country's economy. Could you walk us through what that tax regime will look like for the small and medium enterprises and for the youth in business?
Of course, as you are aware, those people earning less than 24%, if I could just start there at this point, those people who are earning less than 24% continue to be cushioned, and they're still within, the tax relief, and therefore we expect that to continue in the next, several months. But that said, Kenya Revenue Authority and the government generally are sensitive to the business community, and we remain sensitive specifically to small enterprises. And in the policies that we implement, one of the things that we have to balance is to ensure that as we meet, government funding requirements, we also put in place mechanisms to ensure that small enterprises are supported, because these small enterprises are the taxpayers of the future. And therefore, you'll notice that we have various, tax brackets that may not affect these small enterprises. And we are also cognizant of the fact that these small enterprises need to value add for them to be able to grow to levels where they can contribute significantly to the tax revenues of this country. But that said, it is important that we all contribute to the construction of our roads, to the constructions of our hospitals, and to generally to, the building of this economy. And therefore, no one should be left behind, not small enterprises, not large enterprises, but we are careful to ensure that we do not put in place mechanisms that make it impossible for the small enterprises to thrive in this country.
Indeed. So take us through the mandate of KESRA, because I understand that Kenya is way ahead in the customs training and issues concerning taxation. Could you take us through the role of KESRA in Kenya and equally in Africa?
Yes, the Kenya School of Revenue Administration is one of the gems that I would say that this country needs to celebrate, and I'll tell you why. The Kenya School of Revenue Administration is the largest of the only 4 World Customs Organization training institutions in East and Southern Africa, and therefore we have a mandate to train for 24 countries within this particular region. That means that we are way bigger than South Africa, we are way bigger than Zimbabwe and Mauritius, which are the 4 institutions. And we are also one of the largest training institutions in customs in Africa as a continent. The Kenya School of Revenue Administration, in short we call it KESRA, is also the host of the African Academy in Tax and Financial Crimes Investigations for the OECD, and therefore through that banner, or under that banner, we train for the continent in that area. We are also the training partner of the African Tax Administration Forum. And so our mandate really is a continental mandate. Back home, of course, we train the over 8,000 KRA staff, and we also train for the public sector. And we have programs running all the way from, short courses, certificate courses, diplomas, higher national diplomas, postgraduate diplomas, and 2 partnership postgraduate programs that we have with Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, and a master's degree that we run in partnership with Moi University. And so really our mandate is quite broad and continental in nature.
Thank you for mentioning the tertiary institutions, and that's what I was going to ask you next. That Yes, there seems to be a lot of training on courses, on business. There are courses on business administration, but we still have a knowledge gap on taxation. A lot of young people that are starting their businesses today may not even know how to file their taxes. They don't know how to apply for, the KRA pins and all that stuff. How are you bridging that knowledge gap, and what does the landscape look like for you right now?
You're right, Brian, and yes, there is a knowledge gap, and the knowledge gap extends actually beyond what you have said. There is need, for example, for the curricula that is being offered even in universities on taxation to be updated. Modern issues to do with taxation may not have gone into the curricula. And if you look at areas like transfer pricing, which is a major area in international tax, it is an area that needs to be input in the curricula. That said, we are doing a lot as a school to ensure that the tax gap that exists both in the corporate sector and in other areas is bridged. And therefore, we have introduced a number of programs, especially short corporate programs, which we run. And one of those is a program that we are running for the public sector. And therefore, we are looking at ensuring that all public officers who, by extension, are agents of KRA by the virtue of withholding taxes and collecting on behalf of KRA. Here we are talking about finance officers, we are talking about heads of procurement, we are talking about heads of HR. We are trying to make sure that all these people in government attend programs at KESRA, and we also have programs for the corporates and others for small enterprises, basically as a way of ensuring that this gap is bridged. We are also working with various institutions to bring them to speed in terms of the tax that we practice, so that then they are able to update their training. But generally speaking, our job at the School of Kenya Revenue, at the Kenya School of Revenue Administration, is to every day work to further professionalize the tax and customs spaces in this country.
Fair enough. Thank you so much for speaking to us today. That was Dr. Fred Mugambi. That is all the time we had with him today on issues taxation and, of course, the knowledge and training that goes into understanding the whole spectrum of taxation. Dr. Fred Mugambi is a commissioner at the Kenya Revenue Authority and equally director at the Kenya School of Revenue Administration.